Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show every day, covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Here we go, the first day of September. Can you believe it? Tuesday, September 1, the Bill Press Show. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us on Free Speech TV, coast to coast and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Great to see you. We look forward to hearing from you as well, what you think about all the issues of the day. Give us a call at our toll-free number, 866-55-PRESS, easy enough. Or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. President Obama in Alaska, our 50th state, and he is spending a couple of days there talking about climate change, even going out to visit a glacier today, at least what's left of a glacier. I think that's why the president is there. He wants to see a glacier before they all disappear. The president, of course, stirred things up a little bit before leaving for Alaska by officially renaming Mount McKinley Mount Denali, which was its original Native American name in the first place. And the people of Ohio, McKinley's home state, are very upset about that, or at least they're pretending to be. Who cares? On the Republican side of the ballot, boy, the latest poll from Iowa shows Donald Trump tied for first place with Ben Carson. Believe it or not, both of them at 23%, all the rest of the candidates way, way, way behind. And also, Scott Walker has another monumental flip-flop. Now he says he does not want to build a wall at the northern border as well as the southern border, after saying just the opposite a couple of days ago. And 4,300 more emails from Hillary Clinton's private server are released. About 150 of them contain classified information and had to be redacted. Lots more coming up, so stay with us here on the Bill Press Show. Give us a call again at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
In the latest poll, Donald Trump and Ben Carson tied for first place in Iowa. Have Iowa Republicans lost their minds? Neither one of these guys has ever held public office before. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is September 1. Can you believe it? 1st of September 2015. So good to see you today. And thank you for joining us. This is the Bill Press Show. You got it. And we're here with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Glad to see you in Radioland. Thank you for joining us. We're here with you on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish, DirecTV, Dish Network. There we are. And we're here with you worldwide on our video stream. Yes, in Tokyo, in Shanghai, Cape Town, you name it. We're there with you. Rio de Janeiro. We got it worldwide. Anywhere there's an electronic device, we're there on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hello, worldwide, one and all. Welcome to a lively discussion of the issues of the day here on the Bill Press Show. Becomes all the more lively when you tune in and chime in at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. And, of course, you can always send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And maybe someday we will release all of your emails to the world so that, maybe just like we'll do them like Hillary's emails, just 4,000 or 5,000 at a time.
At a time, yeah, exactly.
So, just to whet your appetite here. Yeah, you can see how many times I was talking to Sidney Blumenthal. We got the gang in here, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson leading the team. Hello.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning.
Everything good?
Happy September.
You're giving Jamie a second day in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've made it to another month.
He's made it.
Look at it that way.
A whole new month.
Right.
I'm telling you, it feels like just yesterday it was August, and now here we are in September.
But
crazy.
I just sort of feel, it's like when I get on a plane, I just trust the pilot. I can't fly the damn thing, so somebody else has to do it for me. Yes. Ray Rogers is here with to take our calls, your calls this morning on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer on the job, as always, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. I got to tell you, it's like, when George Bush ran for office, he had like 3 issues, and he repeated it. Good discipline. Repeated them at every step, and you knew who George W. Bush was, governor of Texas, and you knew what his issues were. In many ways, Donald Trump is the same way, except better, because Donald Trump has one issue, and we know what it is. There's no doubt about it. We know what that issue is. As Huffington Post pointed out yesterday when they put out a little montage of Mr. Trump on the campaign trail.
China. I've been saying China. China. China.
No doubt about it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's all over China.
What's on your mind, Donald? China.
China.
Damn it! That's what he's missing. Again, like Mitt Romney, you never knew what he stood for, right?
Yeah.
On any issues. Scott Walker,
he's all over the place.
Donald Trump, we got it. At least, whatever you say about him, you can't say you don't know what he's doing. You know what he believes in, right?
It's very true.
All right, it's a Tuesday. We know why you're here, to see Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky. We will not disappoint you. They will both be in, as well as Ruby Kramer coming up a little bit later, one of our favorites from BuzzFeed, and Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. And boy, President Obama stirring it up in Alaska. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, so the president is in Alaska, and we got word yesterday that while
climate change cocktail.
Get your climate change cocktail. Yes, exactly, melting sea ice in your drink this morning. So while the president is in Alaska, we got word yesterday that he is going to tape an episode of the TV show Running Wild with Bear Grylls. It is the show that focuses on Bear Grylls, the survivalist and survival expert. And people who have gone on this show have done some pretty wacky, nutty things. He teaches people how to hunt and catch wildlife so that you can eat them if you're trapped in the wilderness. He teaches people how to drink their own urine to not dehydrate if they are trapped out in the wilderness. And so the president is going to, quote, trek through the wilderness with survival expert Grylls in a special edition of the show set to air later this year. That is according to a press release from NBC.
Well, he's got another year to go to trek through Congress, so he needs some tips.
This could help. Yeah, talking about survival. So we go to San Francisco. The airport there, a man by the name of Hubert Tang. Hubert Tang is a bartender inside the airport.
Okay.
So he walked outside of work the other day, and he found a $20 bill sitting on the street right outside the airport.
And?
He used that to go and play the lottery.
No.
And he won $1 million.
You gotta be kidding me.
Just like that.
I mean, not just lucky once, but lucky twice.
You're lucky enough to find a $20 bill on the ground and you gamble with it? Apparently, this is the luckiest guy in San Francisco. He said he went to the store, bought a ticket, scratched the ticket outside the store, and looked at his friend who was with him and said, I think I just won $1 million.
Oh, my God.
And he had one. He says he doesn't know what he's going to do with the money, but he has toyed with the idea of going around and placing $20 bills in random locations.
So the ticket probably cost him $2, right?
Well, he bought enough tickets.
Okay.
Like he just used the whole 20 to buy lottery tickets. So I guess that's one way to, get a good return on your investment. I mentioned yesterday in Chicago, Target is going to be adding beer into the Target. Well, Kroger yesterday announced that they are putting in beer stations in all of their stores where it is allowed. There are certain county laws that you can't do that, but they're putting in-store beer stations and having tastings to try and get more people in. So you could go in and, again, buy yourself a beer at a Kroger.
That's it. But you buy the beer.
You buy the beer. But they are going to have tastings, so if you show up and you want to have a little sip of the different
they have,
kinds
pretzels
of
and potato chips?
Well, you could go buy some. But, yeah, I don't know if they have
that. So you can eat them while you're walking around.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I like, snacks with my beer.
With your beer. That's a good point. I'm sure you
Next thing you know, we're going to have parties in grocery stores.
I know.
This is going to get reckless.
It's going to get so reckless.
I had my wedding reception at Target. Some people would think they should step up. Careful, Bill. Be careful. All right. I have to be very careful because some mornings my family's listening.
I was going to say.
So when I talk about... What I talk about.
Who are we talking about here?
When I talk about white trash, so I have to be very careful. Yes, let's jump to Alaska. President Obama up there for the Glacier Conference. Don't ask me to give you the name of that organization again, but the acronym is Glacier, aptly named because they are talking about climate change resulting in the disappearance of glaciers around the world. President Obama stressing the importance of that issue yesterday.
Climate is changing faster than our efforts to address it. That, ladies and gentlemen, must change.
And the president said we need to do this. We need to act not just for ourselves, but for our grandchildren.
Remind yourself that there will come a time when your grandkids and mine if I'm lucky enough to have some, they'll want to see this. They'll want to experience it, just as we've gotten to do in our own lives.
And the president will go out to tour and see and maybe walk part of a glacier today. But the president's, what the real news from Alaska, of course, is an announcement that he made before leaving yesterday for Alaska on Sunday. Friday, actually, Interior Secretary Sally Jewell signed a proclamation renaming Mount McKinley Mount Denali, which, of course, was its original Native American name. The president made the official announcement on Sunday, and that has stirred up a hornet's nest of feigned outrage from Republicans and a couple of Democrats in Ohio who say this is an insult to William McKinley, the 25th president of the United States. How dare he? And we heard from John Boehner put out a tweet yesterday. Congressman Tim Ryan, Democrat, put out a tweet. And everybody was sort of jumping on board, accusing the president of insulting the people of Ohio. Now, first of all, just to put this in perspective, again, the original name of the mountain was Denali. That's what the Indians called it, which Native Americans, the Eskimos, whatever, called the native population of Alaska called it. It means the high one, right? It was changed in 1896 by a prospector for gold up there who renamed it, started calling it Mount McKinley when William McKinley was nominated 1896 for the Republican nomination for president. He wasn't president yet. He had not been assassinated yet. He was nominated by the Republican Party. So this prospector started calling it Mount McKinley, and everybody sort of picked it up, and that became its name. In when was it? Yeah, and then Congress followed that up in 1917, made it official, said it's now officially Mount McKinley. In 1975, the state of Alaska, where Mount Denali is located, they renamed it back to Mount Denali, and they named the park Denali National Park that it's located in. Since 1975, the U.S. Congress has blocked it. It was blocked by, guess who? The Ohio congressional delegation, senators and members who said, no, Alaska can't do that. We'll block it in the Congress. So much for states' rights, that people talk about. Yeah, but they don't believe in states' rights if a state does something that they don't like. So that controversy has really been going back and forth. So, officially in Alaska, it's been Denali since 1975. But the president on the national level made it official on Sunday. And then again, you have Boehner and all these other politicians, mainly Republicans, who are accusing the president, again, of stabbing the people of Ohio in the back, which I got to say, first of all, let's talk about it here. What you think about this, 866-55-PRESS. I think it's ridiculous on so many levels. Number one, it's ridiculous because it's just one more case of if Obama's for it, John Boehner's against it. You name it. Immigration reform, climate change, Iran nuclear deal, the bailout of the auto industry. Obama's for it, they're against it. I mean, it just gets silly. I mean, making a big deal about this.
I want to read to you some of Rob Portman's tweets.
Rob Portman, Senator from Ohio. Yeah,
right, because you could take this language and apply it to anything that the president has done. Here's just his tweet storm about this. I'm disappointed with the administration's decision to change the name of Mount McKinley. President McKinley was a proud Ohioan, and the mountain was named after him as a way to remember his rich legacy after his assassination. Which, as you pointed out, is wrong.
Wrong.
The naming of the mountain has been a topic of discussion in Congress for many years. This decision by the administration is yet another example of the president going around Congress. I urge the administration to work with me to find alternative ways to preserve McKinley's legacy somewhere else in the national park that once bore his name.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, when Congress doesn't do anything at all, of course the president has to do something on many levels. So it's ridiculous because it's just opposition for opposition's sake. It's also ridiculous because, I got to say something, I'd love to get on the phone right now and call at random 1,000 people in Ohio and first ask the question, do you know who William McKinley is? I bet you 90% of them have no idea. If they know he was the president of the United States, even, do you think they know anything about him? Or do you think they care? Do you think they really care? No is the answer. I'll bet you nobody gives a rat's ass in Ohio about the fact that this mountain was named after William McKinley, who never left his front porch in Canton, Ohio, and certainly had never been to Alaska. But so that's ridiculous on many fronts. But I got to say, I take this a step further, okay? All right. Now, you may be with me so far. And let me know, 866-55-PRESS, whether the president did the right thing. But you know what really outrages me? Is this is a favorite pet peeve of mine. I'm against naming anything for anybody. I hate this practice of particularly naming airports. I mean, we have the outrageous insult, I think, to the people of Washington, D.C., that there's an airport here named Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. I have to tell you, I've lived here now 16 years. I've never flown out of Reagan National Airport. I've flown out of National Airport, but I'll never say that I flew out of Reagan Airport. No. I mean, but I feel the same way. And I'm sorry, I feel the same way about JFK in New York, about Thurgood Marshall in Baltimore, about T.F. Green Airport in Providence, Rhode Island. You know, why? Why name things after dead politicians? I think they all, not all of them deserve it, but I think none of them deserve it, to tell the truth. Just name it the Baltimore Airport or the Washington Airport or the San Francisco. Thank God, at least San Francisco, we still have SFO, or Los Angeles, LAX, right? So across the board, I think this whole naming thing is out of line. But so that's why I salute the president. Go back to the Native American name, the high one, Denali. That's what it belongs. That's what it is. That's what it deserves. That's the way it should be. Let's take all the names down from everything. 866. I'll make an exception for Abraham Lincoln and George Washington.
Those are you two.
There you go.
Those are you two.
866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad, as a friend, as a husband,
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday.
It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's Denali. Of course it's Denali. And by the way, during the break, we were thinking about like O'Hare Airport in Chicago. I have no idea who O'Hare was. No idea.
I don't
Logan
know.
in Boston. No idea who that is. Why should it be named Logan Airport? Maybe we'll find out from Tom.
Tom.
Up in Boston. Hey, Tom, what do you say?
Hi, Bill. How are you?
All right, cool. What's going on?
Not much. Hi, Jamie and Pete.
Hey, buddy. What's happening?
See you back in the XO seat, Pete.
Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate the call.
The question I got, William, is that I've always backed Obama, no matter what he's done. I think he's a great president. But he's up in Alaska worried about the glaciers melting, and yet he's turned around and he's allowing offshore drilling. Seems rattling the fence here.
Yeah, I know, Tom. That bothers me, too. I'm hoping, here's what I'm hoping, Tom, because I'm a big supporter of his, too, as you know. I hope that he sees how beautiful that area is up there and how fragile it is and changes his mind on the offshore oil drilling. So, you know, he's right about climate change. He's right. He's doing a great job in bringing attention to that issue and taking action on that issue. But the offshore drilling is contributing to climate change. It's not helping matters. You've got to change your mind on that, Mr. President. Thank you, Tom.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading.
For my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking, random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
All right, first day of September. How about it? Here on the Bill Press Show, 33 minutes after the hour. You'll find us in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Of course, we're there with you wherever you are in this great land of ours. From our studio on Capitol Hill, we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. Yes, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, who was just soundly reelected to another term as president of the AFGE. Proud to work for America every day, as you will find out when you go to their website at afge.org. It's Tuesday. We know why you're here, and he's here. You're not going to be disappointed. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post making his weekly visit to the Bill Press Show.
I'm here to not disappoint you.
Don't disappoint me.
That's it. Your many fans out there. Hello, Walter. Where'd that come from?
Walter.
Arthur, how are you?
I'm fine.
What's your name again? All right, we always love to get your take on the issue of the day we've been debating, which is President Obama's decision to rename Mount McKinley, take that name away and put it back to its original Native American name, Mount Denali. Did he do the right thing?
Yes.
All right. Are you ready to climb it now that it's been renamed?
You know, most people who climb it don't get up there. It's a difficult mountain.
I believe that.
I hear it's really high up there. They don't call it the Great One for nothing.
Bobby Kennedy made it.
Interesting. You know what? Fine name, that's what they call it in Alaska, Denali. They don't.
Right.
Apparently, I haven't been there, but apparently they don't care too much about this McKinley name. And people who are historians and experts on McKinley don't care either. So great.
Yeah.
And the only people who care are in the professional have a grievance industry, and they are Ohio Republicans.
Well said. Right.
Who like McKinley because he was a governor there, and that's a stupid reason to care about what a mountain's named in Alaska. So if the people in Alaska like it better this way, I think that's terrific.
You would think the people in Alaska, not the people in Ohio, should have the last say in naming their highest mountain or the highest mountain in North America.
Sure, and the guys who are airing the grievances, John Boehner, John Kasich, to be fair, they're just going through the motions because this is what everyone expects them. Like, you're a Republican, you're from Ohio. Don't you think this is bad? And the microphone's shoved in their face and they say yes.
The thing
we regret this change, but they don't really care.
From probably elementary school, I don't know. The thing that I remember the most about William McKinley, President William McKinley, is not even that he was assassinated, but that he campaigned for president and never left his front porch in Canton, Ohio.
Well, here's
why. He
sat
on the front porch and made reporters come to him, and then he just never traveled.
Well, apparently the mountain was named after him because of a gold prospector who went up there, and he was fond of the gold standard. The gold standard sucked. That's a terrible reason to name something. The gold standard ruined people's lives. We got off the gold standard. We don't have as many wild swings in the value of our currency. It's much better without the gold standard. So there's really no good reason.
And he named it after McKinley when McKinley became the Republican nominee for president.
Right. So like these inconsequential and stupid things were happening, and people in Alaska don't care. So
all right,
forget
Arthur,
it.
Now I want to see if you'll go with me the next step. All right. The next step, which is we should take names off of everything. Dead politicians. We should not be naming things after dead politicians. I don't care whether Democrats or Republicans. I make, in my world, 2 exceptions: Abraham Lincoln and George Washington.
I endorse this idea because I think it's so weird.
I'm stunned.
I mean, look, win him however you can win him over, Bill.
If we don't name things, what do we call them?
Oh, wait a minute.
It's so weird.
Wait a minute.
If we don't name things, how are we going to talk about what's going on?
You're not agreeing with me?
No, I am. I like it. I like how...
Well, I'll tell you what you can call it.
It would just be...
You know what you can call it?
What?
In San Francisco, you could call it San Francisco International Airport, which is what they call it.
Well, why would you call it that? What is San Francisco named after? Some guy named Francisco? Take the names off of everything. That would be amazing. We're not on the Bill Press show. We're on the show.
No,
I'm not Arthur Delaney. I'm just...
All right.
I'm sorry, Bill.
We're in a world of no names.
He's a mystery man.
All right. Here's the story. And you thought I was crazy?
Oh, man.
And you thought I was extreme in saying I would take JFK and get rid of it, Dulles, get rid of it, Ronald Reagan Airport and get rid of it? No, Arthur wants to go even farther. Okay.
It would just be like airport.
Right.
And then how would people know where they're going? I'm going to airport and I'm taking a plane to other airport.
I'll go for geographical names. I'm talking about taking the
Bill,
names of dead politicians off of airports.
You take away geological names. How can you keep geographical names? Places are also named after people. We're in Washington. It's just going to have to be called.
Yeah. And by the way, what is that rinky-dink outfit you work for?
That's called the Rinky Dink. What are you talking about? Most popular news website in the world. The Huffington Post at HuffingtonPost.com.
Yeah. Huffington.
Yeah. It's a major company.
And who's that named after?
It's named after a man named Michael Huffington.
You're in trouble for that, dude.
It's Ariana Huffington, our fearless leader.
I think Ariana would not be happy to know that some people think it's named after her former husband, Michael.
It's one of the amazing accidents of history that would be lost without the magic of names.
Shall we move on?
I don't know.
What's the latest on food stamps?
Oh, unemployed people.
There's no segue here. I just have
that's as good of a segue as any.
Unemployed people are getting kicked off food stamps in America.
So first of all, let me point out, this is something you're going to be reporting in.
This is a story
Huffington Post today, right?
Not
yet up.
In the Ariana Huffington Post that I have drafted but not filed, and I'm telling you about it exclusively for the benefit of the Bill Press listening audience.
Nice.
Roll the presses.
There it is.
1 million unemployed people will be kicked off food stamps over the course of this year. I mean, we're in the midst of this happening in Maine. It's already happened, and in some other states like Kansas,
they've already cut the budget. You've been telling us this for years. The budget for food stamps, so people. But now on top of that, another million.
That's right.
How many people are on food stamps? About 5 million. Right?
45 million.
45.
Yeah. Now that number is declining for a couple reasons. The most important of which is the economy is getting better. So more people who were poor now are making money, and when you make money after you get to a certain point, you're not going to qualify for food stamps, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because everyone likes for the market economy to provide people's income.
But that's what the program's all about. Tough times, more people need and get on food stamps, and as things get better, they drop off the program.
And so another thing that happens, also because the economy is getting better, is the eligibility rules for receiving food stamps get a little tougher. And states are going through the process of reimposing a time limit. If you're an unemployed, able-bodied, childless adult of working age, when this rule kicks back in, and it's kicking back in at different times in different states, but when it kicks back in, you can only receive food stamps for 3 months in any 3-year period unless you're working 20 hours a week. And if you can't find a job because you're unemployed, you're just going to get kicked off food stamps. They call it a work requirement. I think a name that makes it a little easier to understand what it really is time limit. And this is happening in Indiana starting next month. It'll be about 50,000 people there, the state estimates, who will be given the boot if they can't fulfill this requirement, which from what has happened so far in places like Maine, it's pretty clear it's not designed necessarily to help people fulfill the requirement. The goal is to kick people off food stamps.
Well, so what are these people supposed to do? I mean, these are one presumes people who would rather be working and getting a paycheck and not be on food stamps.
Right. Well, the idea is,
and if they don't have food stamps, so it's just tough luck, I guess. Right? Is that
right? And the state doesn't keep track. They will say that because the requirement came back and the food stamp rolls dropped significantly, people like Sam Brownback, where they did this in Kansas, they just say, well, all those people got jobs and it's great.
Right.
But there's no reason to assume that. So, like you said, it's tough luck. And I think practically what that means, if you're unable to find work, you're just gonna have to suffer a little, and maybe people around you will suffer a little too because they'll have to help you. I believe that's what'll happen in a lot of these cases.
Do states have the ability to do this, on the legal authority to do this on their own?
Well, that's an interesting thing. It's statewide exemptions to this time limit were put in place almost everywhere in 2009 as part of the stimulus bill. And that is ending. They're not going to have that anymore. Federal law won't let them. So it's not necessarily that states are being jerks. This is just the way the program is designed. However, some states like Kansas are jumping the gun because they're excited about this idea of kicking people off food stamps. So they're doing it before they need to, and they're foregoing opportunities to allow some pockets of the state where unemployment remains high to continue to have the exemption. And they're just saying, forget it. Indiana could keep this in places in metro areas with high unemployment, but they don't want to.
And also brag about it and say, look at all the money we're saving, right?
They are bragging about it. Sam Brownback had an op-ed on Sunday, and he said, other states should do what I did. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Scott Walker, another guy who's done this. So it's a popular thing.
Comes up on Huffington Post later
It'll be up
today.
there this morning.
All right. Look for it at HuffingtonPost.com. But remember, you heard it here first on the nameless show.
We're just a couple of guys with no names.
Yeah. You know,
who works at
Hey, guy.
places.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, you.
If you go to Sausalito, California, best bar in town is the No Name Bar.
There you go.
Yeah, very famous. Been there many times.
Trendsetter.
This is a No Name show here with no Name Delaney.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes till the top of the hour now here on The Bill Press Show. Tuesday, September 1. Arthur Delaney with us from Huffington Post. And we learned yesterday that it is a requirement to work at Huffington Post to have your own band.
I don't have a band right now.
But that's how you got the job.
We had Dana Liebelson in yesterday.
Yes, Dana Liebelson was in yesterday. Yeah.
She's a rocker.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Got the hair color to show for it. Right.
Yeah. My band was the Drunk Tigers, and now we're the Defunct Tigers. Sad.
And Zach,
Zach Carter.
Yeah, Zach Carter. Is his band still going?
Now, he was in the Drunk Tigers.
Oh, got it.
Oh, he has an electronic project. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, we're all musicians. All right. We're busted.
Well, all right. Good. I just wanted to acknowledge that's all. Jobs report coming out Friday. Defunct Tigers. Any idea what we're going to find for jobs month of August?
I would expect it to be like the other jobs reports we've seen this year. I would not expect the big stock market calamity from last week to have a massive effect on it at all.
So you think it'll still be up and close to the 200 or over the $200,000?
Yeah, it'll be
range?
around there, and it will. The unemployment rate will remain somewhere around 5.3. It could even just stay there. It could go up 1 or 2 tenths or down, but in general, it will be what the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls not statistically significant. And even if it is, everyone has to remember that number gets revised twice.
Right.
In the next 2 months. So I think the trend will continue, and don't be overly concerned about that stock market.
For those who follow in the long term, not just the daily polling and everything in politics, but just look at elections, long term. Many people believe that all the talk about this issue or that issue and foreign policy or abortion, no matter what it is, that ultimately there's really one issue that decides elections, and that's the economy. If the economy is doing good, incumbent usually gets reelected. If it's not, people will throw the bums out.
Yeah, because people are looking out for number one.
Right, which is for most people
themselves
and the economy. Right,
yeah.
Right. So looking at this economy, who's it help?
It's favorable to incumbents and to the incumbent party, which is Democrats in the White House.
Why?
Well, because they're the ones steering the ship, right? The president himself used the metaphor of Republicans driving the car into a ditch. And this is how it works when you talk about how the economy benefits or hurts politicians. If it's going well on your watch, that's generally, under this theory at least, rewarding for the people, the party in power.
Well, no, I mean, I certainly agree with you that President Obama has done an incredible job of bringing this country back, right? But isn't the problem that too many Americans still don't feel good about this recovery because of stagnant wages or whatever? So
I'm saying the stock market won't give us a lousy jobs report tomorrow, but it's still not going to be the kind of super rah-rah that people would like to see. And there's broad agreement that the better off people benefit the most from this recovery, and wages are stagnant, haven't gone up. And even if people, have jobs, they would like to be seeing more money. But this is this is who the stock market benefits. The stock market going up and doing great. So that money is basically going to richer people because that's who owns shares.
All right. So if you're a Democrat today, no matter it's Martin O'Malley or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, you say, we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. If you're a Republican, your message is what?
You just take the second half of that.
Yeah.
You say we've been mired in the Obama quagmire, and we have a long way to go.
And hope people forget that it was George W. Bush who brought us down.
Yeah,
right?
We will take you to the promised land. Give us the keys to the car. It's pretty straightforward. And even Republicans admit or agree that income inequality is a problem, and the benefits of growth right now are accruing to the people who are already on the top, which they're saying, even though it strongly implies that trickle-down economics is a total failure. But there's broad agreement on the hustings that this is how the economy works now. It's not just Bernie Sanders saying this stuff, it's everybody.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're going to hear any answers coming from the Republican side, but you're right. They do acknowledge that it is a problem. Arthur Delaney, always good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
See you next week.
See you.
All right. Whatever your name is.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, off to a good start here on the first day of September 2015. And we carry on with Igor Volsky from ThinkProgress here at the top of the next hour. And then we'll be joined by Kyle Kondik, the number 2 guy at the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, to take a look at some of the latest wacky news from Iowa, with Donald Trump and Ben Carson tied for first place. I think Republicans in Iowa have simply gone wacko. Lots more to talk about coming up here. It is the Bill Press Show. Stay with us. We look forward to hearing from you. We'll be back with Igor Volsky.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. Now that they've changed the name to Mount Denali, now I'm ready to climb it. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is, you don't believe me, Tuesday, September 1. Great to see you today. It is the Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital. Yeah, nobody else is in town. We're here, keeping our eye on what's going on. The news from Washington, around the country, and around the globe. Bringing it to you and giving you a chance to sound off on what it all means to you. Thanks for joining us today. And let's hear from you at 866-55-PRESS, your toll-free number. Let's hear from you on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And just to make it all the more interesting, sitting across from me today, chomping at the bit because he's not sitting in my chair, Igor Volsky from ThinkProgress, frequent guest host.
My time will come.
It's always so awkward when Igor tries to go over to your chair and we have to restrain him. It's
I was Delaney. Arthur thought they were naming it Delaney Mountain. I had to break the news to him just now when we switched.
Delaney.
It's Denali.
I can see that.
He was very deflated. It's very disappointing.
Good to see you, Igor.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming in and joining our team here. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Here we are.
Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Ray Rogers there on the phones, ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, there he is. And here we are, thanks to Cyprian, on the video stream. Joe Biden got an unusual boost. He's a hard time making a decision.
Yeah, it's a big decision to make.
Whether he's going to jump in or not. I think yesterday was the deciding vote. He was waiting to hear from this voice that we will recognize, telling Joe, go for it.
I'd love to see Joe get in the race.
Because?
Well, go for it, Joe. He's tried twice before. He obviously is interested. I think there's a lot of support for him in the Democratic Party. I think it would stir things up. They're short candidates on their side, so I'd urge Joe to have a shot at it.
There's short candidates on this side. No, just because we don't have 17 doesn't mean that the Democrats are short.
Yeah, we have 17. They only have 4. So they need 13 more.
Yeah, right.
This is Cheney's logic.
Short.
I have to say, listening to his voice just in an earpiece like this, I mean, the man has a future in voiceover. He really does.
It creeps me out.
It's really
it makes me uncomfortable.
It creeps me out, too. No.
I don't know. It's kind of very dramatic.
No. It's Darth Cheney.
It makes the hair on
Isn't
the
it
back
Darth
of the neck
Cheney?
stand
I mean,
Darth Cheney,
right.
yeah.
He can do like a Pixar movie, anything. I mean,
they are doing these Star Wars movies again. I'm
this
sure
is his time.
Yeah.
Needs a second career.
Right. There are not as many candidates on the Democratic side as the Republican side. But having been to New Hampshire and seeing all the Republicans, and having been to Minneapolis and seeing all the Democrats, there's a qualitative difference between them. Maybe not quantitative. Or there's a quantitative. There's also a huge qualitative difference between them. I mean, where do you start, right? comparing Hillary, Bernie, Martin O'Malley, even Lincoln Chafee with that gang of clowns.
Nothing helps you in a Democratic primary like a bear hug from Dick Cheney. I've said that for a long time.
Right.
I've said that for a long time.
As I said yesterday, this is sort of like David Duke endorsing Donald Trump. There's sometimes you just have to say, thank you.
Or Eric Cantor endorsing Jeb Bush.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's going to make the difference. You got it.
Or the edge.
All right, here we go. Igor's here with us and the whole gang. We will be joined by Kondik from Center for Politics down at the University of Virginia at the half hour. But first, up to Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, I'm just going to put this story out there because it's in the news, and I find it fascinating that someone had this poor judgment. At Auschwitz, it's very hot, right, in Poland because of the summer temperatures, and so the officials at Auschwitz decided they were going to try and help people who came to Auschwitz cool off.
Okay.
So they set up little showers as you exit and enter the camp that have little mist spraying out of it. A couple of guests have walked in and were like horrified that Auschwitz would do this and how insensitive it is to have showers at the concentration camp. Auschwitz. Yesterday, Auschwitz actually had to put out a statement and say, we're very sorry. We weren't clearly thinking this through when we put these in there. They will remain, however. They are going to remain there, but they just wanted to let everybody know that they used poor judgment when they put those showers in.
Wow.
Just putting that out there.
Poor judgment. Yes.
Poor judgment.
Whoever
indeed.
condemned it was right.
Yeah. McDonald's Egg McMuffins, right? When they make their McMuffins, the muffin base that makes their sandwiches, they use liquid margarine. Did you know
I would
that?
have never guessed. I thought it was all natural.
Well, no, it's not all natural.
Organic
It's liquid margarine.
Margarine is not natural to begin with.
Well, no, they're not going to use liquid margarine anymore. They said that they're going to change it up. They're going to use real butter now. Real butter because of what you said. They want to try and push this idea that they're using more natural ingredients in what they are using, and so they're getting rid of liquid margarine. They're going to start using butter in their Egg McMuffins. So if you want to go get one in a couple months, they'll be rolled out everywhere.
Wrap it in green paper, and it'll be good for you.
Does this mean Bill's finally going to start eating at McDonald's?
I was just going to say, it's
time.
Not going to make any difference to me. I'll never walk in one.
All right, here's a same theme, different story that you can maybe trust a little bit more. Amazon is actually trying a new pilot program called the Farmers Market Direct Program. They're working with a group called Fresh Nation, which is going to connect farmers to Amazon. So if you wanted to shop at a farmer's market without actually going to a farmer's market, you can look at the inventory online. You can go to different farmers in your area on the website, see what they have in season, see what's ready to be eaten and sold, and you could buy it, and Amazon will deliver it right to your door. It's kind of like a CSA where you just eat whatever is in season, but you have a little more control over it. You don't have to get things that you don't necessarily
Is there anything you can't buy on Amazon?
It's getting rarer and rarer to find something that you can't buy on Amazon.
I mean, I was cooking Saturday, so I realized we didn't have enough garlic. We didn't have sort of out of garlic. With this,
you could have it.
I could have just gone online, gone to Amazon. They could deliver garlic to my door.
Boom.
Yeah.
By drone.
Saved your dish. They would have saved your dish.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't have had to walk a block to the Eastern Market to get it.
What a hassle that is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I'm telling you.
It is true. You can get anything on Amazon.
You really can.
All right. You got it. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. So where do we start, Igor? There's so much. Let's start on the Republican side. Scott Walker wants to build a wall on the northern border. Out Trump.
Out
right?
Trump. Well, now his campaign says he doesn't necessarily want to build a wall. He wants to maybe look at stepping up security on the northern border because no one is talking about that. This was, of course, in response to a question from Chuck Todd. Asked him, well, everyone's talking about the south border, but the northern border is the longest border in the world. What about doing something there? And Scott Walker said, you're right. Yeah. Yes, that's right. No one, I'm the only one talking about this. Maybe we do need to step up security there.
Yeah.
Of course, the Canadian embassy in a statement said, we have not had any terror problems at the northern border, and all of the hijackers on 9/11 came here through U.S. visas and nothing to do with the border. So please. Don't disrupt our business.
And the northern border is pretty secure, isn't it?
It's fairly secure, and it's getting more and more secure. And this is actually controversial because the Obama administration has been stepping up security at the northern border throughout his administration. And some activists in areas around the border say that the additional patrols that are being conducted and all the additional staff that's being sent to police the border have nothing to do, and so go after Hispanic people and African Americans, and there's extra policing in those neighborhoods. And there's been a lot of instances, they claim, where Latinos have been pulled over just because they look Hispanic, asked for their documents, and it's really created a chill in some communities along the border of some folks being afraid to get into a car and drive to work because of that kind of extra hassle. And the ACLU, of course, is involved, that these are kind of unconstitutional
Well,
stops.
Peter and I have our own stories to tell about security at the northern border. We have had our own run-in with the...
During the break, I'd love to hear.
During the break, you're going to hear
Oh, you're going to hear it now?
No, we're not. But put this way, going into Canada from Niagara Falls, Peter and Jonathan Levy and I, we were arrested.
Oh.
Almost.
Okay.
Came close.
Came close.
Don't worry, I'll tweet out the details later, dear listeners.
Right. But is the problem, back to Scott Walker, is that...
No, not back to Scott Walker.
Yeah, right. That he did say, you're right, oh, yes, this is a problem. We have to, let's build a wall on the northern border. And now he says, no, I didn't mean that. But this is Scott Walker's M.O., right? He says he's on the 14th Amendment. Yes, we have to abolish repeal the 14th Amendment. No, I didn't really mean that, he said, the next day. I mean, flip-flop,
On same-sex
flip-flop.
marriage, he initially said a couple of years ago, this isn't a big issue. We're not going to, relitigate this. This isn't a concern for me. Of course, after the court came out, he had a very strong
So the
opposition
boy
statement.
wonder has kind of... sort of flopped on the national level.
Yeah, and it's these kinds of mistakes that have sunk his poll number, certainly in Iowa, where he led just a month or two ago.
Yeah.
He's now, the third or fourth in the pack there, not doing very well. And so he's going to need something, maybe this next debate, September 16th, to try to give himself some kind of new pop. But of course, because the focus is on people like Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson and, of course, Donald Trump, he doesn't really have kind of the mojo right now to frame himself as this Washington outsider, even though he tries very, very hard to do that.
I think it also shows, if you look at the lack of success from Walker and Jeb Bush, who were kind of considered to be top-tier candidates right off the bat, they both had just terrible wishy-washy campaigns, right? Bush has had to walk back 5 or 6 comments that he's made. Walker has had these same refuse to take a stand, trying to have it both ways type of comments. And people, I think, see right through it now. This is why a guy like Donald Trump is doing so well.
All right, and if you look at number one, in the latest poll in Iowa, and they kind of change daily, the two people tied for first at 23%, Donald Trump and Ben Carson, neither one of whom have ever held elective office.
And neither one of them have any real actual policy positions.
Right. No.
We don't really know what they believe. We don't really know what they would do. We know in very broad strokes, but certainly not the kind of details that make big differences in terms of what kind of policy you're pursuing.
But doesn't it really show kind of a disgust or dissatisfaction or distrust of the political establishment?
Yes. When you look at numbers that say...
So the outsiders are sweeping the field
because
at this point.
Republicans are also just sick of the insiders. You look at approval ratings for the Republican Congress, they're like 10%, 13%? What's that old John McCain joke that now it's so low it's just blood relatives and friends, or whatever he used to say it all the time in 2008. It's the reality. Republicans came in with all these big promises they're going to get all of this done, and they haven't been able to accomplish anything. And Scott Walker has actually tried to make a big deal out of that, kind of lean in against the party, copying Trump in some ways, and hoping that kind of message, which is resonating, by co-opting it, maybe it will give him the bounds he needs.
But I do want you to know that Donald Trump has pledged already this morning.
To you personally?
Not to me
Not to
personally, to the American people, please.
More importantly.
Yeah, more than just me.
Yes, of course.
The first thing he will do when he is president of the United States is change the name of Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley.
Of course. It's a day one kind of job. Day one, baby.
This is going to be the Obamacare of 2016.
That's right. Don't put that off. Do that now.
Mitt Romney said on day one, I will repeal Obamacare. Donald Trump says on day one, I will repeal Mount Denali.
It's a matter of principle. It's what makes America great.
Can you believe the outrage? The feigned outrage over the renaming of this mountain?
No, who cares? Who cares what the mountain is called? I mean, I understand some Native American communities care, and that's their culture, and that's the respect that the president is showing them. But
that's an actual reason.
That's an actual reason.
And by the way,
but the actual politics of it are just garbage.
But the people of Alaska may care too. But it is their state and it is their mountain.
Yes.
But why should they have to cater to the people of Ohio?
And we know that this is all garbage because even Sarah Palin, the former governor of Alaska, the current governor of Alaska, whose name I forget, so I'm just saying the current governor of Alaska, all support changing the name like Obama did. And it's only these Ohio Republicans like Portman and Boehner and now some other Republicans out of the blue think that it's unconstitutional and shows some kind of distaste for American energy and all that kind of thing. But really, for the people who live there, to those that consider this an important issue, they agree with the president.
No, I'm convinced, I said this earlier, I am convinced if you did a poll of the people of Ohio, a majority of them would not even know who McKinley was, would not know he was president, and certainly a vast majority would not give a rat's ass about whether or not.
No one, please, no.
Yeah, no. Anyhow, Igor Volsky here with the truth from ThinkProgress, thinkprogress.org. Many more issues, more to talk about coming up, and always welcome your comments on Mount Denali or whatever at 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Taking your emails at BillPressShow.com. Don't worry, we'll keep all of our emails on a private server in Chappaqua, New York. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, what a great segue. Hello. 26 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show with Igor Volsky here as our guest. He won't be hosting again until Friday morning. So, Igor, let's talk about these emails. 4,352 more Hillary Clinton emails out yesterday, except for 150, which contained classified information. When originally we were told there were no classified emails, so there are a few. What do you expect with the Secretary of State? Is this a big deal or not?
I mean, they're pretty boring. I read just the write-ups on the emails of people who went through the thousands and picked the juiciest parts, and the juiciest parts are like she wants to know when The Good Wife airs on CBS. She's into Parks and Recreation. She there's some Gefilte fish. I'm only Jewish. Gefilte fish controversy that she was trying to get the details on, and that's
she
really.
She wants to know: will David Petraeus really? Is he really seriously thinking about running for president? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, she likes Martin O'Malley. She was a big Martin O'Malley fan, and the rest is just kind of boring. What is, I thought, interesting
Your
is that
emails would be a lot more interesting.
Well, I'll release them when the time's right, Bill. What's interesting is some of her aides expressed concern about sending classified information through this email address and said we need to be very careful not to do that. And Hillary, in some exchanges, kind of agreed with that sentiment. So there was certainly a sense that the classified stuff can't be on this server, which undermines this whole notion that Hillary was out there kind of, sending everything back and forth with no regard. She was concerned, and her aides were concerned about it.
I think it's the non-scandal that just won't die. All right, with that, we wrap it up. Igor, thank you.
Thank
See you Friday.
Yes.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the flood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, on the first day of September. How about it? It is the Bill Press Show. We're here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, the one and only Leo Gerard, the United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. Check out their website and their good work at usw.org. We salute the good members of the Steelworkers and thank them for their sponsorship of the program. At 34 minutes after the hour, yes, surprising news maybe out of Iowa. The latest poll shows Ben Carson and Donald Trump tied for first place. Two outsiders, either one able to go the long haul. Let's find out from Kyle Kondik, managing editor for Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball down at the University of Virginia's Center for Politics. You keep on top of this stuff day in and day out, Kyle. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Yeah. So what is it with these two outsiders, neither one of whom have ever held elective office, and Iowa Republicans are saying, yeah, we don't want any of these establishment guys?
Yeah, and it's if you lump Carly Fiorina, the former Hewlett-Packard CEO, in with that group, in some polls, both nationally and in Iowa, you may see them getting 50% of the vote. I was reminded, though, that even in 2000, when George W. Bush was winning Iowa pretty comfortably, you had a group of outsiders like those candidates getting about 50% of the vote. It was Steve Forbes, Gary Bauer, and I'm blanking on the other person, but Iowa will sometimes support those candidates. Back in 1988, George H.W. Bush finished third in Iowa and then ended up, of course, winning the nomination. But I just think things are very unsettled on the Republican side right now, and there's this thrashing about for candidates when the voting starts like 5 months from now. And I think ultimately you're going to see, the more establishment-oriented names doing better here. Maybe that's Jeb Bush. Maybe it's Marco Rubio. Maybe it's John Kasich. The one person who I do think has significantly fallen recently is Scott Walker.
Yeah.
Because he gave a foreign policy speech the other day, and it was basically every Republican talking point just sort of distilled into one single speech. And that's fine. I mean, that's what his party believes in. But I think that Walker hasn't really distinguished himself in any way in this field. And the way he makes news is seemingly on flip-flopping on issues, even little distractions like, supposedly wanting to build a fence on the northern border.
Right.
And if you look at the way the question was asked, he didn't necessarily endorse it, but he also didn't knock it down the way that he should have. And so, anyway, the point of, even if you believe that a Donald Trump or a Ben Carson or someone like that isn't going to get the nomination, and I think I feel that way, they are having some impact right now, and the impact may be to hurt some of the other candidates who we all thought had a better chance of the nomination, maybe somebody like Walker.
Well, yeah, and Walker's not alone there. I mean, the people that we all the early talk was, these guys they're serious. They're the ones who, right? Chris Christie,
sure,
Scott Walker, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. I mean, Ted Cruz sort of, maybe he's got his evangelical base, but the other four are polling really, really low and haven't really caught fire at all.
Yeah, and I think the other issue for
the ones we expected to do so well are not.
I think we also thought that say, maybe a year ago you would have said, oh, well, Chris Christie can win New Hampshire. Well, now I think he's been eclipsed by John Kasich in New Hampshire, at least at the moment. Jeb Bush probably is also going to try to do well in New Hampshire and any number of other candidates. More recently, we thought, oh, well, Scott Walker could win Iowa. Well, now he's sort of an afterthought in Iowa. And again, there's plenty of time for him to come back there. But that's a big question about Bush. And I say that as someone who's consistently thought throughout this process that Bush was probably the candidate likeliest to win the nomination. But you look at the early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, Bush doesn't have any obvious appeal to any of those states and isn't leading in any of those states. Now, he'll have the most financial resources and maybe like Mitt Romney did, he can kind of carpet bomb the other candidates in a submission and win one of these early states. But Florida doesn't vote until March 15th, which is, there are many states that vote before them. So it's just it's very tricky right now.
What I don't understand the appeal of Ben Carson at all. I mean, again, he has no record to run on. I don't even know what he stands for on anything. He's a brain surgeon. Okay,
he is a he's a guy who's developed this kind of niche following in conservative circles over the past several years when no one else has really been watching. And so I think he's a somewhat known commodity in evangelical circles.
Based on giving a good speech or telling a good story about Jesus.
I think basically that's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, he does have, when you say, famed neurosurgeon, that is sort of a shorthand for saying smart guy.
Right.
But he's also a guy who's good at throwing red meat to the base. And frankly, I think we saw this with Herman Cain too. I do think that Republicans don't like being called racist, and if there is a quality black candidate that they can support, they sometimes will show support for those folks.
Yeah, but you mentioned Herman Cain. I mean, he was colorful, right? And he gave a really good speech. I've seen Ben Carson now in person a couple of times, and he was just flat to me. I mean,
I certainly think during
the debate.
I thought he was pretty sedate. In fact, I thought if
sedated.
I thought that. Just if you were, trying to grade the thing, I thought that he stood out among the least at that debate. But that's not how I think voters reacted to it. I think Carson benefited from that debate and is doing well now.
And with Donald Trump, are there people in the Republican Party today, the so-called Republican establishment, who now are starting to worry that maybe Donald Trump could go all the way?
Well, I think maybe people are starting to worry that they're going to have to spend money to stop Trump, and I think that
that's a difference.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Al Hunt had a good column in Bloomberg, I think it was yesterday, talking about how there were a certain number of options for the Republicans to try to contain Trump, and one of them was doing nothing. That was the first one.
Right.
And that's, I think, what the default
Because
position
he would
is.
self-destruct.
Yeah. And he said so many things that would make a normal candidate self-destruct,
Right.
and yet it hasn't really hurt him, at least in the short term. One of the other things that Hunt floated was, for a Republican billionaire to fund a super PAC, basically with the objective of destroying Trump, and maybe something like that happens. The Bush folks. I mean, Mike Murphy, who runs the Bush super PAC, has come out and said we're not going to spend money on Trump because we think he hurts the other candidates more than he hurts us. And I think he might be right about that. Although Bush doesn't look like he's in a particularly strong position now either. I do think that that at a certain point, what the things that Trump has said will catch up to him, but we're not at that point yet. I don't think.
None of the old rules seem to apply to.
Yeah,
I mentioned, like you mentioned, we talked about Scott Walker. I bet you Donald Trump could have said he's going to build a wall or a fence on the northern border, and
it wouldn't hurt him at all.
Wouldn't hurt him at all.
Yep. Yeah, there's just a different set of rules, and the one thing that's been really interesting about Trump's rise, and it calls into question some really early polling, and that is that his favorability was horrible amongst Republicans when he first entered the race,
right.
And it's not now. It's not great, but it's consistently pretty decent.
Yeah.
And for numbers to turn around like that, because that's one of the things that people like me would cite before Trump got in and say, oh, well, Republicans don't even like him. Well, that's not true anymore.
Right.
So
let's say a quick hello to Anita out in San Antonio. Hi, Anita.
Hi, good morning, guys.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know why anybody is shocked that Donald Trump and Ben Carson are leading in Republican polls. 70% of Republicans don't believe the president is a Christian. Another 70% still believe he wasn't born in the United States. These people are a bunch of know-nothings. I don't know why the mainstream media continues to ignore that. Donald Trump is a birther.
Well, that's true. I mean, and he was a birther after everybody else, almost. Most people stopped being birthers. Anita, thanks for reminding us. Kyle?
The thing I would say to that is that sometimes when politicians say things and the kind of mainstream acceptable press determines that they're out of bounds, that doesn't mean that voters think they're out of bounds. And I think we've seen that with Trump, is that he said any number of things over the summer that I think a lot of fair-minded observers would regard as offensive or what have you. But there are some people out there who don't think that. And I think that's where a lot of his support comes from. They like his shoot from the hip style and that sort of thing.
And they liked his taking on Megyn Kelly. They liked his taking on Jorge Ramos, right? They liked his calling immigrants rapists. I mean,
it's also this reality TV culture and the reality TV candidate. I mean, it's and again, Bill, I'd be interested in your thought on this. I think he's the biggest non-political celebrity to ever credibly run for president. I mean, would you consider Dwight D. Eisenhower that? No, not really. And our concept of celebrity because of television and social media is different than maybe in the past in American history. But
I don't know whether you would call Ross Perot a celebrity, but he got 19% of the vote, which is more than Donald Trump.
I think
I'll put myself out on a limb right now and say that's more than Donald Trump will get in any national election. But
I think that's right. Yeah. But I don't think Perot started as. I mean, Trump's been around for decades.
No, he didn't start as a celebrity. He just bought his way into it.
Sure.
We've got, by the way, there is another party and other candidates who are running for president. I saw them out of Minneapolis, and Bernie Sanders doing very well in the latest Iowa poll. Let's talk about that side with Kyle Kondik when we come back. Again, jump in like Anita did at 866-55-PRESS. Kyle Kondik here from University of Virginia Center for Politics.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, now 12 minutes before the top of the hour with Kyle Kondik. Ruby Kramer from BuzzFeed joins us at the top of the next hour. Kyle Kondik here from University of Virginia Center for Politics. So, Kyle, on the Democratic side, a couple months ago, it was Hillary Clinton in Iowa, 57, Bernie Sanders like 16 or something like that. Now it's Hillary 37, Bernie Sanders 30. She's still got a good lead, but Bernie closing in. Could he win Iowa?
Yeah, I think that Bernie could win Iowa and New Hampshire. I think that those states are tailor-made for him. His support is concentrated amongst white liberals, and there are a lot of them in Iowa and New Hampshire. They're two of the least diverse states in the country. But then the calendar turns to Nevada and to South Carolina, which are much more diverse electorates. Sanders hasn't shown a lot of appeal amongst African Americans or Hispanic voters. Now, if he were to win Iowa and New Hampshire, or even won, he would get a lot more national coverage than even he's getting now, and maybe that would change some of these polls. They're very they move around a lot, and we were just talking about how they can move quite quickly on the Republican side. I think that's probably true on the Democratic side as well. But I will say that the first two states are tailor-made for Sanders. Also, he's a candidate who I think is he's not going to be dependent on party support, because the party establishment largely already supports Hillary Clinton. More than half of the sitting Democratic members of Congress, in fact, have endorsed Clinton, which is a very high number for a non-incumbent. So I think that Sanders is going to have to focus on kind of outsider grassroots energy. And again, Iowa and New Hampshire are perfect for that sort of campaign because they're small.
Right.
I wonder, though, when you get to, say, an Ohio or a Florida, can Sanders organize those states in the time required to win? Even Obama couldn't. I mean, Hillary won almost all the big states except for Illinois, because I think that Obama's magic was the organizational strength. And you have to, I think most Democrats' default position is Hillary Clinton, and you have to get them to turn that off. And that the only way you do that is through kind of direct contact.
I asked Senator Sanders when I was in Minneapolis about people are comparing him to Howard Dean, right? Saying, you had big crowds, had a lot of excitement, but just fizzled when it came to a caucus night. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. In fact, the New York Times has an excellent piece this morning about the ground operation that the Sanders campaign, they've got, I don't know, something like 53 people on paid staff now in Iowa, organizing people for the caucuses. And the Senator, Bernie's on his way out there today, I think, for 3 more days of canvassing Iowa. And everybody that comes to every one of those big meetings, they're getting their name, their address, their phone number, their email address, and they're recruiting them to come out to the caucuses.
Yeah, and again, I think that's Obama did an excellent job organizing Iowa, and Obama was also at this time 8 years ago, Clinton looked pretty strong, probably as about as strong as she looked now. Now the Iowa polls were Clinton never polled all that well in Iowa, and she's consistently polled well this time, so that's a difference. But yeah, I certainly think that those early states are in play for Sanders, and I also feel like a lot of people who analyze this stuff have continued to feel that Hillary Clinton is a very, very strong favorite for the nomination. I include myself in that group. But I also feel like there's been this sort of surge for Sanders, and people who are analyzing and have to continue to kind of move the goalposts a little bit and say, first it was like, oh, well, she's probably, she could win every state or something like that. And then it was like, well, Sanders is now he's doing well in New Hampshire. Well, he's from Vermont. But now he's doing well in Iowa. And so, there are these little holes developing in the, Hillary's invincible theory. And I just think, people who analyze stuff need to be cognizant of it. But again, after saying all that, I still think she's in really good shape to win the nomination.
Quickly, 30 seconds. Joe Biden.
I would say probably 50-50 to get in, but I also wonder if he would get in, would he draw equally from Sanders and Clinton? There was one poll of Iowa that sort of indicated that.
That draw from both, but it would change. It would change the equation.
It would
a lot.
It would absolutely. But there's this theory about how Elizabeth Warren could be Biden's running mate. Ideologically, Biden is way closer to Clinton than he is to Warren or to Sanders. In fact, there was a story yesterday about Elizabeth Warren ripping Biden a decade ago for his support of credit card companies, many of which are based in Wilmington, Delaware, his home state.
Yeah. When I was growing up in Delaware, it was the DuPont company that ruled.
Right.
Now it's the credit card company. Now it's the banks.
Yeah,
so, you understand that. Hey, Kyle, it's always great fun to see you and learn a lot from you. Thank you so much for following it as closely as you do and coming in and sharing it with us.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, see you again soon. Say hello to Larry. All right. I'll be back, tell you what on the president's schedule in Alaska today.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All All right, getting ready for that third hour. Don't forget, we lose you on Free Speech TV until 5 p.m. Eastern. But if you want to watch right away, thing you do is jump over to our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Big third hour coming up with Ruby Kramer here from BuzzFeed. I was with her out in Minneapolis. Christine Pelosi, Democratic strategist from California. We'll talk about Democratic efforts to get support for President Obama's Iran nuclear deal. And Neill Franklin, former law enforcement officer from Baltimore, here to bring us up to date on some of the police-community relations issues. All of that coming up in hour number 3. Don't miss it.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative. How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants. We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. Coming into hour number 3 with Ruby Kramer from BuzzFeed, Democratic strategist Christine Pelosi, and Neill Franklin from the Law Enforcement Against Prohibition organization. President Obama, yes, up in Alaska today, and he's going for a hike, hiking up to Exit Glacier. Then he's going to do a boat tour this afternoon of Kenai Ford's National Park. How about that? So just President's Day to enjoy the scenery, magnificent scenery of Alaska, but also to make the point that all of this is threatened, particularly the glaciers, by climate change and global warming. And the president will spend another night in Alaska before coming back to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. We'll be back again with Ruby Kramer, Christine Pelosi, and Neill Franklin. So hang right in there with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night. And I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues. The state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
7,000 pages of emails from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton released, and guess what? There's nothing there. Why don't people stop going to pay so much attention to this thing? Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, September 1. Great to see you. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. Coming to you live from our nation's capital and Washington, D.C. I know. You wonder what we're doing here. So do we. You know, President Clinton's out of town. Joe Biden's out of town. Senate's out of town. The House is out of town. What are we doing here? I'll tell you what we're doing. We're here doing our job, bringing you the news of the day, and giving you a chance to talk about it all. We'll tell you what's going on here in Washington, around the country, around the globe. You tell us what it means to you by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. With Team Press here ready to go, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning.
Not ready to go. We're well into it.
Happy September.
How about it?
Yeah. Feels like just yesterday it was August.
It's hard to...
And now here we are.
I don't know about that one.
I got dad jokes all day.
They're so bad I didn't even get it. Ray Rogers ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, rounding out the team here and taking care of the cameras and the lights to make us look good. And we got a great lineup for you today. Neill Franklin, our law enforcement friend from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, will join us at the half hour. We'll talk soon, coming up with Christine Pelosi, Democratic strategist from California, member of the Democratic National Committee. But we kick off today with a good friend, political reporter for BuzzFeed, who was at the DNC meeting, along with me, in Minneapolis last weekend, Ruby Kramer, joining us on our newsline. Hi, Ruby. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right.
Ruby, how much did Bill drink when he was in Minneapolis? Come on. Come on.
I can only speak to my own drinking, which was probably more heavy than it should have been. There was nothing, Bill, am I right? There was nothing else to do for most of the time.
For most of the time, yes. I might say that Ruby and Alex Seitzwald and Evan McMorris Centura, I believe. Anyhow, they were all heading out to some unnamed bar the last time I saw them. And I never saw her again. So there
That's
you go.
why we have you on. We just wanted to make sure you were okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I made it.
There we were. One of the more interesting people there at the conference, and you caught up with him, was former Vice President Walter Mondale. What do you have?
I did.
Yeah, tell us about that interview. What do you have to say? What was his point?
Well, it surprised me that he was sort of there and kind of as unnoticed as he was. I mean, I know he got sort of shout-outs in all of the speeches, but no one actually went up and talked to him. So
yeah.
I was sort of eager to.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave this really lovely speech to the senior caucus the day after, the last day of the DNC, and it was really about sort of reminding a couple hundred people who were there in the audience about sort of the like big projects of the Democratic Party and like being a part of the high tide of history, as he called it. Medicaid, Medicare, Voting Rights Act, food stamp program, like all these, and saying, you know, these are things that we did, and, you know, we need to continue to pursue, like, it was like a very big think, like, questions of justice and speech. And then afterward, I talked to him, and he was just, like, so clearly, you know, I don't want to characterize him in a way that's extreme, but kind of sick of the small ball politics that is occupying so much of our attention now.
Right.
And, you know, he was saying that he has sort of never seen the political system with regard to presidential politics be this bad before. He was just sort of like, he was just kind of sick of it, I think, and was harkening back to sort of like a more fundamental
the days when people dared do big things. I thought it was interesting too. He's part of a great, and this was mentioned in several of the speeches, of a great tradition of progressive leaders from Minnesota, Eugene McCarthy and Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, Paul Wellstone. You know, several of them cited in speeches at the convention, and of course today with Amy Klobuchar and Al Franken.
Yeah, he was saying that Minnesota has been a very big part of. There's been sort of like a progressive leader and a leader on civil rights, and was among the first to diversify its delegates and you know, prohibit racial discrimination in that selection process, and they have been out front. It was interesting. I mean, he was just like a lovely person, and you know, during a weekend where the only thing anyone could talk about, and I don't exclude myself from this, was like the latest poll or the, you know, whether Biden, you know, was going to get in, or what else is Trump. It's just like, I don't know, it was sort of refreshing to talk to someone who is thinking about other things. It's just, in fact, like, would like to take himself out of
He
that
also
completely.
and several people mention, and he certainly deserves credit for being the first man to put a woman on the national ticket, with Geraldine Farrar, which was, of course, well received by the crowd there. So we got a chance to see 4 out of 5 of the Democratic candidates, if we still include Jim Webb on the list, Lincoln Chafee and Hillary Clinton, Martin O'Malley, and Bernie Sanders. I'd like to get your impression of each of them. Let's start with Martin O'Malley. Were you surprised with that nuclear bomb that he threw in the middle of the DNC?
I think I'm surprised he took it so far. I mean, he was so aggressive in calling out the party in front of the party's chair and the entire all the delegates, and
he made that his entire speech. I mean, that was it.
Oh, it was just
not enough debates.
It was uncomfortable. It was when he's been talking about that for weeks, months, I guess now. So I get it, but he has never been so just like aggressive and angry about the debate stuff. He was calling the party system rigged to benefit. I mean, he was basically accusing the party of favoritism towards Hillary Clinton, which is a pretty serious charge, I think. Especially when, you know, it's like Debbie Wasserman Schultz is like on stage with you, and you like, it's just,
No, she was sitting right alongside of him. He was standing at the podium, but she was there. She was 10 feet from him, right?
Yeah, I couldn't see. I was all the way in the back I couldn't quite see her reaction, but I mean, I saw pictures of it afterward, and it's just like they both looked so unhappy to be within proximity of each other.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, he made them uncomfortable, made her uncomfortable, but I also thought, I was surprised he won a lot of support from the delegates there, too, who think there should be more debates, right? They like to have more. After all, they're Democrats, right? So.
Right. I heard a mix of, but I guess, people who are not looking for, who think this sort of are not so unsatisfied with the field as it is now.
Well, yeah,
are not
there's no doubt.
More.
The Hillary people do not want more debates. No doubt about it. I mean, it's good. Now, for her speech, I thought she did, interesting in your take, I thought she did a good job and gave the delegates there exactly what they wanted to hear.
I totally agree. And that was a sort of more revved up, she gave a revved up version of a speech that she typically gives that I've seen her give to JJ dinners and sort of like party dinners. And she's very good in that mode. She's really good at getting a crowd going on like a very simple Democrat-Republican contrast. And like she has this great riff about Trump and how, he's just like the other candidates, but with more, with like flashier hair or something like that.
No,
she's very good in that mode.
Yeah, she has the hairlines, the hair jokes, down for sure. And Bernie Sanders came into that crowd knowing it was Hillary's crowd, but he didn't hold back either.
No, he didn't. And he did something, he was in a slightly different kind of like setting than I've ever seen him, which was in the, like in a room of Democratic establishment people, for lack of a better phrase, basically saying to them, you guys have a turnout problem. That's why you do so badly in these midterm elections. You don't get people excited. You need grassroots enthusiasm. I have grassroots enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I get these crowds of 20,000 people, and I can win you. Like, I can lift with me the rest of the Democratic Party, and, including down ballot races. And I've never heard him make that argument before. He was basically saying, stick with me. I'm a good general election candidate, which is like not something I ever thought I would really be hearing as an argument from Bernie Sanders.
And he did use the phrase that same old won't win, right? You can't go. You can't get these people with politics as usual. They're not going to turn out for that.
Right.
And again, that was a message I think a lot of people in that room did not want to hear. But that was a message that Bernie showed up with.
Yeah, I think also it's like this is someone, for maybe from their perspective, this is someone who has never spoken to the DNC before.
Right.
He's not a Democrat, period.
Never been to a meeting of the DNC before.
Never. This was his first DNC meeting, and he's been to one
convention,
Democratic convention, which was in 2008. So this is not exactly someone you want like coming in and saying like, here's how you should run your party, and here's how I will save you.
Yeah. But it was fun to watch. I got to tell you, it really was. Yeah. Ruby, we got to run along, but it's so good of you to join us this morning. I'll see you on the road next time.
Okay, that'd be fun.
All right,
Thank
Ruby
you.
Kramer for BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed.com. Democratic strategist Christine Pelosi was there, lining up votes in support of the president's Iran nuclear deal. How's that going? We'll check in with her next.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
Who says I'm not running for president? I don't know. After being out in Minneapolis last weekend, I might change my mind. Hey, what do you say? But I was there for the DNC meeting. We've been talking about it. Of course, the summer meeting of the DNC, principal item of business was to hear from 4 Democratic candidates for president. There was also a lot of attention to some of the issues, including the Iran nuclear deal. Christine Pelosi, Democratic strategist from California, member of the Resolutions Committee of the DNC, is one of those who took the leadership in getting a letter signed by delegates, by members of the DNC, in support of the Iran nuclear deal negotiated by Secretary of State John Kerry, what am I saying? And certainly being pushed very hard today by President Barack Obama. Christine Pelosi joining us on our news line this morning. Christine, good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Early in San Francisco, I know, so thank you for getting up early for us. How many signatures did you get on this letter?
Well, Jim Zogby, Donna Brazil, and I were very enthusiastic about the vice president's presentation that he made to Democratic National Committee members on a conference call the day before the meeting.
Right.
So that was on Wednesday. So Thursday we arrived in Minnesota and began collecting signatures. And within about
you guys were working.
day,
you guys were working that room. I saw it. That letter was.
We did.
Around.
We tried to have as many conversations, in-depth conversations as we could as possible, and we ended up with over 170 signatures, which is over half the room, and doing that all in essentially a day, a calendar day, and very, very excited about the breadth and depth of support to the president. Delegates from over 46 states signed the letter, and running the gamut in terms of diversity, and we were very proud to have so many members of the Democratic National Committee support the president, support the process, and say to us repeatedly, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. Some of them who were from states where their members or their senators were as yet undecided said, let me call home, let me talk to them. So not only did we have a strong showing of support for President Obama, and we are going to be sending him the letter officially this morning.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this. So what happens to the letter now? Has it gone to the White House?
It goes to the White House this morning, and we then, so we're very pleased about that. And then we mobilized the people who signed the letter to reinforce the message with their members of Congress and with their United States senators. Some of them are in states where, for example, in Alaska, where the president is now, and all the all the delegation signed the letter, are they're under Republican representation. So for them, it's merely a matter of expressing their support. In other states like California, where our senators are strongly for it, we reinforce that and bring over more and more Democrats every day.
But there's still a lot of there's still several Democratic senators who have not come forward yet to take a position one way or the other. So will the members of the DNC be putting pressure on their Democratic senators to support the deal?
Absolutely, and many of them were doing that. That was the purpose of having a letter, so we could generate this full discussion and really get in depth with people. Where are your senators? What's going on in your state? What are the dynamics? How can we help? Remember, Democratic National Committee members were elected to elect Democrats, and because of our skills at electing Democrats. So we have strong relationships and strong grassroots relationships with our members of Congress and our senators. So the point of the exercise is, for example, in a state like New Jersey, where several of the delegates signed, was to say, now let's go home and talk to Cory Booker and say, Senator, we encourage you to support President Obama as a senator who campaigned on the same kind of engagement and multilateralism that President Obama did. This is the kind of action that fits comfortably within that, as well as in the platform that he helped write in 2012 as a member of the platform drafting committee for the Democratic National Convention. So we want to have as many points of conversation as possible. We also know that there are Democrats who have questions on the substance, which is why we were so proud of the job the president's been doing, and members of his administration, Secretary Kerry, Secretary Moniz, and of course our vice president, and all the declared Democratic candidates for president who support the deal.
Okay. Christine Pelosi, good of you to take time for us this morning. Good work on the letter, and I'm sure the persuasion process will continue until we see a signed Iran deal. Thanks so much, Christine. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. As always, we'll be back with Neill Franklin from
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion. I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking, random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, you know, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. 33 minutes after the hour. The Bill Press Show here in our nation's capital, brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. Yes, the good members of the Machinist Union, men and women strong, under President Tom Buffenbarger. Great guy. Talked to him yesterday, as well as his Vice President Rich Mahalski, whom I saw at the gym. How about that?
All right.
Working out. For more information about the good work of the machinists, go to the website at goiam.org. We salute them for the good work and thank them for the support of the program. Lots of questions circling still. We don't talk about it that much anymore, about the so-called war on drugs, which has certainly changed with Colorado, Washington, Oregon and Alaska legalizing the recreational use of marijuana. Man has been active in this issue for a long time. A former state trooper for the state of Maryland, former director of training for the Baltimore Police Department, Officer Neill Franklin, now director of a group called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Hey, Neill, good to see you again.
It's glad to be back, Bill. Thanks for having me.
I mean, there's a lot going on.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has been, but there's a lot going on this front of legalization.
Yeah. Quite a bit.
What states are up next?
Quite a few in the Northeast region, New England area. Look at states like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island.
You got them covered. Yeah,
we got them covered. And, of course, California, we're going to be looking at that for 2016. And Maryland, too, now. Don't forget Maryland.
Maryland, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have voted for...
resident. Ready for it.
Yeah, and I have voted for legalization twice in California, and I'm ready to vote next year.
One more time.
One more time.
It's all going to take just one more time.
I think this time we make it.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it is the number one cash crop in California.
I think it's probably the number one cash crop in the country.
Yeah. It's amazing that it's taking California this long.
Legally or illegally. It is the number one cash crop.
Yeah, so I might as well recognize it. Yeah, but
absolutely.
From a law enforcement point of view, right? Why is this such an important issue to you and to law enforcement?
Well, I think for me, and I think also for law enforcement, it's the violence, reducing the violence. So I'm not just talking about marijuana. We're talking about dramatic drug policy reform for all drugs. Okay, moving from a place of illegality into a place of legality, regulation and control. We, the people, cannot regulate and control drugs if they are prohibited. When they are prohibited, you drive it underground into criminal marketplaces, and it's managed by the cartels, and they have taken over Chicago. It's in other cities across this country. It's managed by gangs, your neighborhood crews, and I think we know how they conduct business, how they manage products like drugs. They do it with violence. They do it with shootings. They do it with murders. They do it with witness intimidation. They do it with kidnappings. They do it with hiring our kids by the thousands into their networks to sell drugs. See, because kids have easy access to other kids, and you want to get people hooked as soon as possible. That's why we advocate for a system of regulation and control for all drugs.
And shouldn't we have learned that lesson once before with prohibition, right?
We should have learned it. Prohibition of alcohol only lasted for 13 years, ended in 1933 with the repeal of the 18th Amendment. You know how difficult that is?
Yeah,
we're not just talking about changing the law. We're talking about repealing an amendment. So we weren't paying attention, and we didn't learn from that mistake, horrific mistake, which had the same consequences of violence, of shootings in our streets, of corruption by our police officials and public officials, and that whole laundry list of problems that we're having today with the prohibition of drugs. And what's interesting is, Milton Friedman, who was an advisor to many of our presidents, mainly Republican presidents, was constantly advising on heading down this road of prohibition of drugs. He was very familiar with alcohol prohibition.
He was for it or against it?
He was against the prohibition of drugs. He said that we need to legalize, regulate, and control drugs. Milton Friedman. And he said that we would be experiencing these same problems that we're experiencing today. Not just the violence, not just the corruption, but increased rates of addiction and overdose deaths. He called it.
Yeah.
So we should have listened to him.
George Shultz, former Secretary of State for Ronald Reagan, and it's just, to me, makes so much sense. And there are many strong conservative voices out there.
August Vollmer, back in the 1920s, when we started down this road of prohibiting drugs, August Vollmer was what we consider one of the fathers of modern-day policing here in the United States. He was one of the first leaders of the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Do you find much support among law enforcement officials today who will publicly, police chiefs or sheriffs who will publicly come out and say, we agree with Neill Franklin and LEAP?
Some are there. We have a couple among our ranks. We have Larry Kirk from Missouri, and he's an active police chief in the state of Missouri. And we have some others. We have tons of retired police chiefs and drug czars and other officials, judges too, criminal prosecutors, federal prosecutors, the whole shebang. One thing that I would advise people to do is to listen to how police officials were talking about this subject 10 and 20 years ago, and listen to how they're talking about it today. Mm-hmm. Many are not coming out and saying it as in your face as we are, but listen to how they're talking about it and how their messages have changed. They want to say it, but they're trying to figure out, how do I say it without looking like those wonderful folks over at LEAP?
Yeah. Now, you touched on something which I think is this is all part of, which is that there's so many people, because it's a criminal activity, there's so many people who end up in prison for serving long terms for non-violent drug-related crimes, right? And not just marijuana, but other drugs as well, which creates this big problem of a disproportionate number of young, particularly African-American males, Latino males, in prison for 20, 25 years for first offense.
Right. So now,
this criminal, in other words, when you talk about criminal justice reform today, it's directly related to prohibition.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this is one of the things that you're going to see you're going to see some differences in how we at LEAP start talking about this issue and approach this issue. There's this huge movement right now for criminal justice reform, reducing, as you said, reducing mass incarceration, reducing the criminality of our citizens, because
sentencing
we
reform
finally
and all
realized that we are the number one incarcerator on the globe, by far, beating any other country by rates and in hard numbers. So there's huge effort to roll that back, to look at mandatory minimum sentencing, which primarily is the result of our drug policies being tougher on crime, so much to speak. Now, whether you're on the left, the right, in the middle, everyone, this is a nonpartisan issue to reduce mass incarceration in this country. Now, we haven't gotten to where we need to be in addressing our drug policies, because we know by far that that's the number one contributor to the numbers of people that we have in prison, the numbers of people that we're arresting every day in law enforcement. It is the number one contributor to the problems that we have between police and communities getting along together. Okay, it leads to zero tolerance policing and a whole host of other problems that we have. Violation of the Fourth Amendment as we go searching people, doing strip searches on the side of the highway, cavity searches on the side of the highway, and so on. So we know how problematic it is. So this criminal justice reform effort, what LEAP is now telling people, whether you're talking about mass incarceration, whether you're talking about the problems with civil asset forfeiture as we take your money and your property, under the umbrella of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about police and community relationships, whether you're talking about the corruption that we're seeing among police officials, whether you're talking about the problems that we have with our children, whether you're talking about addiction rates and problems and overdose deaths, and on and on and on, the common thread, and it's not just the thin thread, it's a rope. The common rope linking all these together is the war on drugs. It is the prohibition of drugs.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you make that point, because I hear there's so much. Look, you look at like Eric Holder, right? He was taking the lead in criminal justice reform, and now it's Loretta Lynch. But they only talk about part of the equation.
Right.
They don't tie it to the war on drugs, which is feeding the system.
Quick story, because this is perfect timing that we're talking about this. In Kansas City, Missouri, a Missouri man by the name of Jeff Mizanski. You might have heard of this man. Governor Jay Nixon just commuted his sentence because he was found guilty of 3 nonviolent marijuana-related offenses. He was sent to jail for life with no chance of parole.
God.
And they commuted his
for
sentence.
the governor.
Yeah.
And the governor commuted his sentence. He's already spent 20 years in jail. He's going to be released today. But 3 times with pot, and he was sent to jail
20
forever.
years for smoking pot. I mean,
his case is not unique.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
Okay, so there are many more folks like him, and not just for pot, but for other drugs as well.
Yeah.
Possession, multiple possessions of crack cocaine, and many of these people, I know there's some listeners saying, well, some of these people were selling cocaine and selling heroin. But you know what? Many of those people are selling to finance their own addictions.
Of
you know
course.
what? I'd rather have them selling it than breaking into my home, robbing me at the ATM, robbing my mother at the ATM, as many people who are addicted, because, we shun them from society. We don't give them the on-demand treatment that they need. We don't treat them the same way we treat someone who's addicted to alcohol. I'm still trying to figure that one out, and providing
that's right.
services to them. So you know what? We need to look at cases similar to that one across this country and communicate more sentences.
Yes, listen up. Law enforcement saying prohibition against and the war on drugs is just a huge mistake. Big waste of money, too, by the way. Boy, I'll say. And law enforcement resources. Neill Franklin here, director of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. It's leap.cc. Is that the website?
Absolutely.
Leap.cc. We'll be right back.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an $29,000 loans on their books.
Together, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
More and more people are finding it impossible to pay back to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, Thursday, September 1, winding up here. Very important discussion about the war on drugs, efforts to change it. Certainly act underway in many states across the country. And one organization out there in the forefront of those efforts, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, or LEAP, Director Neill Franklin here in studio with us. Neill, if this war on drugs relates to criminal justice reform, it also relates to this whole question today we hear a lot about of community-police relations, doesn't it?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're dealing with some issues still in Baltimore from the May riots that we had in Baltimore, resulting from the death of Freddie Gray, who died in police custody in one of the transport vans. There's an individual, Freddie Gray, who had just multiple arrests for drug possession. I mean, a ton of them. So his case is similar to many others in cities like Baltimore and other cities around the country, where we in policing are constantly going after people who are possessing drugs. And in doing so, we violate their rights. We search them inappropriately. And do I fault the police? Yes, I fault the police. And sometimes I don't, because the men and women on the street, they are under tremendous pressure, especially in a city like Baltimore, which was we were policing by numbers. Okay, so you make a certain number of arrests, you make a large number of arrests, and we're not concerned about the conviction rate, okay? The quality of the arrest means nothing. You make a large number of arrests, you know what? We have a better chance of qualifying for federal grant money. Yeah. Unfortunately, in this country, we like hearing numbers. We want to hear that there were more numbers this month than last month, unless it's homicides. But when it comes to arresting people, yes, we made more arrests this month than last month. That shows we're out there working and doing our job. Not true. What you're doing is you're creating a great adversarial relationship between police and community, and we're talking about enforcing drug laws. People who are in desperate need of treatment and education and other things, and jobs. And then we're out there with our police forces occupying neighborhoods and communities in this under this quest to enforce these drug laws.
I know we don't have much time, but what's it going to take to change that? Is training the answer? You hear a lot about that. Better training?
It's going to take a combination of things. Obviously, better training. It's going to take better hiring. It's going to take better training. It's going to take a better program for immersing new police officers into the communities that they will be serving in. It's going to take better leadership at the sergeant level and training and so on. But it's also going to take the changing of some of our laws. So our political representatives have a seat at this table, too, and they have a responsibility to roll back these drug prohibition laws and to move it from a place of criminal justice into a place of health. That's where it needs to be.
Right.
Get the police out of the business of, this is for doctors, clinicians, family members, clergy to deal with people and their addictions. And we just need to take a page out of the book of Milton Friedman. We need to take a page out of the book of August Vollmer and many others, George Shultz.
And this is something where I wish I'd seen President Obama and his attorney generals, now two of them, step up and lead the fight too. But we just got to keep working on it, right?
We got to keep working on it, and we, the listeners, us, the people, have to push our representatives,
Absolutely.
Make the phone calls, write the letters. To
because as we've shown, I think in this half hour, it does all tie together, right? And so much of it steps back to this crazy war on drugs.
Not only does it tie together, again, the war on drugs is responsible for much of the problems that we're having.
Neil, you're doing great work. Thanks so much for what you're doing and for coming in this morning.
Well, thanks for having me, Bill.
We'll see you soon again. And again, it's LEAP, L-E-A-P, leap.cc. Check out their good work. Give them your support. I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show every day, covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
You know, we all know that the role of the opposition party in Congress is to oppose, but sometimes it gets downright silly. I mean, take John Boehner's latest tirade. Republicans in Congress oppose the Affordable Care Act because Barack Obama was for it. They oppose comprehensive immigration reform because Obama was for it. They oppose raising the minimum wage because Obama's for it. And they oppose the Iran nuclear deal only because Obama's for it. But now John Boehner's got his panties in a twist because President Obama's changed the name of Alaska's Mount McKinley back to its original Native American name of Mount Denali, which Boehner says is an insult to the people of Ohio, McKinley's home state. I mean, come on. Is he serious? Does he really believe Ohioans give a damn? I want to know, how many citizens of Ohio even know who William McKinley was? This is opposition just for the sake of opposition. It makes no sense at all. No wonder nobody takes John Boehner seriously. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Good show today. Thank you for being with us. Ray Locker from USA Today joins us tomorrow as a friend of Bill, among other good guests. And President Obama will use his day to actually walk a glacier today in Alaska while he still can. Have a great Tuesday. Come back and see us again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.